Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you to the Vice Chancellor's panel discussion today. The topic is education in times of COVID, opportunities and challenges. Can universities help shape post-COVID-19 world, as we call it, a new world order? I will quickly introduce our speakers for today. We have been joined by Professor Dr. Gurinder Singh, sir, and since the lockdown, he has ensured that all the students at Amity University should get the best of the world. And it is because of his vision, his passion, his guidance and his motivation that we have been able to conduct these webinars, and we have been able to get such luminaries with us over this particular platform. And today is one of those great days where we have the Vice Chancellors addressing our students, seeing how universities will shape up post-COVID-19. Before I hand over the session to Dr. Singh for his opening remarks, conduct of the session, I will quickly introduce our speakers for today. We have been joined by Professor Ian Martin, Vice Chancellor and President of Deakin University in Australia. He came to Deakin from the position of Vice Chancellor of Anglia Ruskin University in the United Kingdom. Prior to that, he was Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic at the University of New South Wales in Australia. Professor Martin spent a number of years at the University of Auckland in New Zealand, with positions including Professor of Surgery, Dean of the Faculty of Medical and Health Science, and Deputy Vice Chancellor with responsibility for external and strategic partnerships. Professor Martin grew up in the United Kingdom and attended the University of Leeds, where he completed his medical degree, doctorate, and Master of Education. After graduation, he trained as a surgeon specializing in gastrointestinal and laparoscopic surgery while holding clinical academic appointments. We welcome you, Professor Martin, to this webinar today.
Thank you very much indeed.
Next, I would introduce Dr. Carmen Lamogna, who's the Vice Chancellor, American International University, Bangladesh. Born in Manila, Philippines, Professor Lamogna earned her Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from Adamson University, Manila in 1978, passed the licensure examination for chemical engineers on the same year. She obtained her master's degree from the Philippines and a doctoral degree from California. Under her guidance, the university from its inception has earned eminences as a higher seat of quality education in Bangladesh and abroad within a short period of its establishment in 1995. From 70 students, the current student population is more than 10,000 under the faculties of Science and Technology, Engineering, Business Administration, and Arts and Social Sciences. Dr. Lamogna was one of the awardees in the 2006 Presidential Award for Overseas Filipinos. The award ceremony was held in Malacañang Palace, Manila, Philippines, last December 7, 2006. She delivered the acceptance speech on the said occasion on behalf of the 48 presidential awardees. Dr. Lamogna was selected as top 100 women of the world under the education category by the International Alliance for Women, TIAW, and has got many such awards over the span of her career. The humble story of Dr. Lamogna being the first woman Vice Chancellor in Bangladesh has inspired women to take action in support of women's empowerment and advancement in society. Her extraordinary accomplishments in promoting women through education-based programs, initiatives, or personal action in a developing country like Bangladesh have earned for her the most coveted recognition. Dr. Carmen, I welcome you to this webinar today. And I'm sure our attendees today will be immensely benefited by your views. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Pavel, who's the first Vice Rector, Associate Professor of Novosibirsk State University of Economics and Management, Russia. He's a member of Public Council under the Ministry of Finance and Tax Policy of Novosibirsk region, corresponding member of the Siberian Academy of Sciences of Higher Education, and member of editorial board of 4 scientific journals in Russia, USA, and South Africa. Dr. Pavel, we welcome you to this session. And now I would like to introduce Professor Xiao, Vice President for Academic Affairs, National Tsinghua University, Taiwan. He is a distinguished professor in the Department of Life Sciences at NTHU, and he's been recognized as the Best General Education Teacher, Ministry of Education, Taiwan, Best MOOC Award, Ministry of Education, Taiwan, Best Lecturer Awards from the National Tsinghua University. Prior to this, he was the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs, NTHU, Director, Center for Teaching and Learning Development, NTHU, and Director, Institute of Systems Neuroscience, NTHU. We welcome you, Professor Xiao, to this session. And without further ado, I would request our Group Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Gurinder Singh Sir, for his opening remarks and to start this wonderful session today.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatnagar, and what a great day to welcome the leaders of academics who have guided the whole world, who have guided the entire academics in our very prestigious webinar. People say that COVID-19 has thrown various challenges. I would say that it has also brought the world together. Organizing of this webinar, where we can see the academic leader from Australia, where we can see academic leader from Taiwan, Bangladesh, Russia, coming together and deliberating that how the universities of tomorrow will look like is, I think, one of the advantages also which COVID-19 has been able to provide us. This is an opportunity and an advantage. And I think that globally, the universities across the globe, academic leaders across the globe, they are thinking, they are deliberating that how they are going to meet the challenges for tomorrow, how the universities of tomorrow will look like. Indian government has come up with its new education policy just 2 days back, and they are encouraging foreign universities to come to India. While the students in India are finding it difficult to travel, the government of India is trying that we should be able to create an education hub in India by inviting the leading academicians across the globe, by inviting leading universities across the globe to come and contribute into the education sector of India. Keeping this in viewpoint, we thought that why not to call some leading academicians of the world who can come and who can talk about that how the universities of tomorrow will look like. So on behalf of the entire Amity University, on behalf of our founder, Dr. Chauhan, who is watching this show live, and on behalf of our chancellors who are also on this webinar, and on behalf of our all vice presidents and deans, 11 vice chancellors, and all 15 campuses who are watching this webinar, I once again welcome you. I would say that we are really privileged and thankful to each one of you that you took time out of a busy schedule to address to the academic community of the world. We will start with this webinar by requesting each of the panelists to speak for about 10 minutes that what is their view, what challenges they feel that their universities are going to face, how the universities of tomorrow will look like. Gaurav has given me a long list of about 237 questions now. And what we have done is that we have divided them. Professor Martin, don't worry, we're not going to ask 237 questions. We are dividing them into the 5 parts. So we will later on, we will talk about the virtual universities. We will talk about the employability. We will talk about the industry experience, how we are going to give it. We will talk about how universities across the globe, they are trying to meet the challenges by accepting the credits of each other. And do you think that we will be able to establish the virtual campuses abroad to see that the students across the globe, they get the quality education? But first, I would request each one of you to give your viewpoint. So we'll start with you, Dr. Carmen. If you can give your viewpoint that how the universities of tomorrow will look like, what challenges you feel that are in front of the world, and how the academic community and academic leaders of the world are going to meet these challenges. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Amity. We have been in such long relationship, And this is the first time I'm seeing you face to face. So good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Mr. Garo Bhatnagar, thank you for following up with all my questions. Dr. Pavel, Professor Martin, Professor Shao, good morning. I know it's good afternoon somewhere else. Okay, I am from Bangladesh. Though I am a Filipino, I've been working in Bangladesh since the establishment of the university from day zero. I've been with the university, and it was a struggle for me since I was the first woman vice chancellor in the country. It was difficult for me to get the approval from the ministry because I may be a president, but now I have broken the ceiling of that. So there's a few women vice chancellors, even our prime minister is a woman, the speaker of the house is a woman. So I think Bangladesh is going through that path. Okay, anyway, the brick and mortar model of an institution within the four walls of a classroom with teachers sharing their knowledge, taking tests and assigning homework, focused on and encouraging repetition and memorization is the standard for being ranked in a predefined grading system. How much of that has been changed over the years? Pre-pandemic, in a lot of cases, most educational institutions still followed a system that was heavily reliant on traditional models. For the most part, we are still bound within the walls of our classroom. The majority of higher educational institutions still intentionally or unconsciously coax repetition and memorization as the most effective approach to education. Most are still defined by marks and grades, regardless of whether they actually reflect the actual level of learning or skills. But because of this pandemic, nothing is normal anymore. Our tides change when in a crisis, otherwise we just go with the flow. So I would say this entire pandemic has exposed the vulnerable flaws in the system of governance around the world, and it did the same for education, especially in Bangladesh. The institutions have been rooted so deeply into the conventional curriculum, course structure, lecture contents, blah, 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 and they seemingly become a depiction of the glass that is full. So full to the brim, there is no scope left for any additional concoction. Even when it came to the closure of educational institutions last March 20, most remained in denial, thinking it was just for a few weeks. In 2 weeks, we will return to normal. But 2 weeks became a month, it became 4 months, and we are still closed. There was an announcement that the educational institution cannot open before September. So there's still some universities are more expeditious than others. Some are still working in progress, and some are still yet to adapt, especially the public universities. But in AIUB, we have always strived for continuous improvement, keeping ourselves on our toes, embracing challenges, developing ourselves, and keeping pace with time. I think that one of the major reasons why we were able to shift our entire operations online in a span of 4 days. 4 days, we were able to shift online. We were the first to respond to this crisis among all other educational institutions in Bangladesh, and I am very proud to witness the agility and resiliency of my institution, of the whole community, AIUB community. We cannot be forcing our students to learn the same way we did 10 years ago. Time has changed, and it's high time our teaching and learning does too. Catalyzed by the pandemic, we have gone from one end of the learning spectrum to another. But as a result, we skip the phases in between, the blended and hybrid learning. It is already an extremely constructive concept that has been implemented in various institutions across the world. AIUB, as Professor Singh was asking me, we have our own, we call it views, virtual university system. So we have been using this from time immemorial, from the time we started in 1995, we have a very small system. Now this views, this university expert system is so robust that I will be useless if we go offline. We have been working with blended learning, implementing in multiple layers of our teaching method. We have gone fully online, conducting all the classes of all the 4 faculties using the virtual platform of Microsoft Teams. We have a licensed Microsoft Teams, unlimited users. I can host a conference of more than 20,000. And I'm very proud to say that Microsoft has given us the license for free, because in 2008, AIUB was a case study for them. So we are the largest user of MS Teams in South Asia. Now, when we talk about this blended learning and hybrid learning, the blended learning is a fundamental ideology. You know, these 2 words are often interchanged. It's often being confused. Blended learning is a fundamental ideology that the online material was not intended to replace the face-to-face class time. A blended course involves face-to-face class sessions that are accompanied by online materials and activities, essentially a blend of both live and online learning. With a widespread use of the learning management system, the blended course approach has become very popular. We may already be teaching it, but we really don't know that the term there that we're using is blended. Now, for the hybrid learning, the online components are intended to replace a portion of face-to-face class time, which can either be synchronous, meaning that students are interacting online in real time, such as through class sessions conducted like what AIUB is doing, MS Teams, or asynchronous, meaning that students interact online at different times, such as through online discussions board. Creating a synergy between the different interactive experiential collaborative means of education, the hybrid approach personally is ideal for students who are living in different locations or are part-time due to a heavy schedule or a full-time job. At present, AIUB utilizes the best online tools to support teacher-led classrooms while encouraging students to explore practical approaches that combine both technology-integrated learning and hands-on applications of theories. Now, how will these immediate changes play a role in defining what the future university will be? Technology is a digital tool that can work in service of good teaching with the appropriate preparations, design, delivery, and support. It can create a sense of community by reducing the bureaucracies of a traditional classroom, therefore reducing the hierarchy. The larger challenge is how to continue to embrace individual faculty teaching excellence while guiding the overall quality of teaching. This is the case with both face-to-face and the technology-enabled learning. For the transformation to have maximum outcomes, it should be handled as a learning and teaching moment for both faculty and students. Higher education institution leaders and faculty should acknowledge where they are on the journey of effective online pedagogy and invite the students to be on journey with them. This way, we have an institution level common understanding of what good teaching learning would look like. For higher education to transform into a hybrid learning, resilience, flexibility, agility, along with the engagement from all the stakeholders are the critical elements that educational institutions should have. We need to allow for our universities to not only address the immediate pandemic at hand, but also plan for a long-term vision to evolve the traditional learning environment while looking to a future state of a more blended hybrid learning experience. If we take the best practices we have learned from other institutions that have implemented successfully the hybrid learning programs, make use of the knowledge base within our university system, and augment the impact for our future generations, this would truly be a paradigm shift in higher education that would transform its trajectory for the generations to come. What this environment would lead is to a greater recognition of the role that teaching learning experts bring to the table. This environment will shine a light on the expertise, flexibility, creativity, resilience, agility, and humanity, not only of these individuals, but of higher education ecosystem as a whole. The reality is that higher education institution can approach a hybrid learning as an opportunity to combine the best of both worlds with face-to-face and virtual learning teaching approaches. It can expand experience that educators and management can draw experiences from. This off-campus transformation dictated by the coronavirus make it all but certain that online learning is poised for explosive future growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Carmen. I think this was really something which everyone wanted to hear from you. And she is the first woman Vice Chancellor of Bangladesh, a role model for the many females across the globe. And if you look at the lectures which are there on the YouTube, or if you look at the research profile of the university which she is leading, you will be able to find out that how ably she has been able to lead her university. And I think one of the very important messages which the academic leader of Bangladesh has given is that the universities for tomorrow will be those who are preparing themselves to meet the challenges of tomorrow. And I think in her university, because they were having the virtual university system which they implemented in 1995, that they were able to very quickly shift from the regular mode to the virtual mode in 4 days. And rest is the history. I think most of the universities in Bangladesh have followed what she has been able to implement. So thank you so very much for giving us the theorem of excellence, that how the Bangladesh universities, and especially your university, is meeting the challenges. We have got a very known name in the field of academics, Professor Ian Martin, with whom we enjoy a very close partnership. Deakin and Amity, they are working very closely, as we are working with the American University at Bangladesh also. But with the Deakin University, we are offering hybrid programs, we are offering articulation programs. Their students have come to us on the New Colombo plan. They have participated in our research conferences. We have participated in the research conferences. We have jointly organized a number of events together. What we want to understand from Professor Ian Martin is that how Australian universities are gearing up to understand or to give the new theorem to the world, and how they are going to meet the challenges which COVID-19 has thrown in front of us. Over to you, Professor Martin.
Thank you very much indeed, and it's a real pleasure to be here. I think all of us have lived probably through the most tumultuous 6 months for higher education in society in all our lifetimes. And as we as a university look to the next 6 months, but also the next 6 or 7 years, we're spending as much time thinking about how we navigate the next few months of lockdowns and partial lockdowns as we are thinking about the next 6 years. A lot of what we've been doing is thinking, what have we learnt from the last few months of moving very, very rapidly to almost all of our students being fully online that we want to keep in the future? And I'll return to that. But also we've been thinking, what from our mission as a university is so important that whatever happens in the future, we can't let that go. So I'll return to both of those questions, but a little bit of context. So Deakin was established in 1974. it was established as a university that sat outside the capital city of the state to make sure that those students who weren't getting access to university had access to university. Now, we had, from our day one starting point, a mission to deliver distance education. Now, in 1974, distance education was a room full of people stuffing envelopes with printed and photocopied papers and books that were sent out to students around the state. We have moved on slightly since then, and we are now one of the most digitally enabled universities in Australia. We have about 60,000 students, and at the beginning of March, the first few days in March, about 18,000 of those students were studying fully online, and the remainder were studying largely based on campus. 1 week later, all 60,000 of them were studying pretty much fully online. And whilst that was a huge step for the institution, I think it is fair to say, a little bit like the experience we've heard, if you have a pedigree in that space, the transition was easy, but I wouldn't underestimate the amount of work that it took to scale up to that level. So we've now run through one teaching period of fully or almost fully online. It's fair to say that our campus is never completely closed, and virtually none of the Australian university campus is completely closed. We moved to a position of limited activity on campus, where we could continue to deliver those things that were simply impossible to deliver in a digital world. So for our health professional students, some of the clinical skills training, some of the laboratory and practical work. That's done in severe constraints. We have to have 1.5 meters between students, 4 square meters per person within a room, and on it goes. But we've been able to keep that going. What have we learned from the online experience that we absolutely want to keep? Well, the first thing is a real understanding of you can transition to the vast bulk of the educational experience being delivered in this way, well, with quality, with a high level of student engagement. And I'm not just saying that. Our student evaluations that we've just had in for the first teaching period are almost identical to those that we had a year ago, and in some areas are better. Why are they better? Well, we're working through that, but I've got a sense it's really focused people's minds on pedagogy, what really needs to go into the course, and how do we best maintain contact with our students. So we've learned a great deal in those first 4 months of this strange new normal that we now occupy. But equally, what we have also learned is that we will never be able to fully replace the bricks and mortar university with a digital university where we can continue to do everything that we want to do. The future will be a hybrid model of that, I'm no doubt whatsoever, where we do best digitally what is best done digitally, and we do best on campus what is best done on campus. So for us, looking forward, that's the first thing we want to keep. The second thing we want to keep is a real focus on educational design, curriculum content, and really importantly, assessment practice. One of the areas that I think we've all probably struggled, and certainly I talk to my Australian colleagues, is in an off-campus world, how do you do high quality, secure assessment in a way that works appropriately? And I think that's still a piece that will require more work, but it's an area that's really focused our academics and our teaching and learning colleagues on the importance of really solid assessment design that can be flexed up. But I think this concept of the hybrid university is absolutely going to remain. And that will be hybrid in terms of local students being on and off campus. It will be hybrid in terms of international students doing hybrid programs with sometime with a partner, sometime with us. And I think it will be hybrid in terms of curriculum, because I think one of the things we've all learned over the last few months is actually we're all a lot more comfortable about collaborating digitally. I think before I move away from the education piece to look forward, I think the other thing that we've really noticed with this transition has been actually distance matters less, but at the same time, distance matters even more than it ever did. So what I mean by distance matters less is that we can do what we're doing today, and you could all be down the road in Melbourne. It wouldn't make any difference to this interaction, and it's completely acceptable. And one of the things, I think we should keep, particularly working with international colleagues, is the acceptance of communicating in this way. We don't have to jump on a plane and meet once a year. It's quite okay to meet once a year or so, but let's catch up in a different way. Let's build those linkages and build on this confidence. So I think we've learned a great deal. We've really wedded in this idea of hybrid, blended being the future, but not just blended in the way that we used to thought about it, blended as an actual philosophy for the university. We are a blended university. We exist as confidently in the physical world as we do in the digital world. To move to the more philosophical part of my response to your question, which is where to from here, not just the next 6 months, but the next 6 years. What does it mean for universities? Well, at a very high level, I don't think it means anything. And what I mean by that is our core mission actually is still the same core mission it was in 2019. And I think we can get fixated on everything has changed. But we are about the creation, understanding, and dissemination of knowledge. That has always been the mission of the university. That will continue to be a mission of the university. It's just how we make that real and where we focus. So looking forward, that sense of absolute focus on our core business, education for our students, and the exploration and development of ideas through our research and innovation will remain at the heart of the university. But the way we approach that is going to be fundamentally changed by the last 6 months. We are going to have to concentrate more of our resource on those core activities because we've realized that is the essence of the university. And also, like everybody, the economic shock of COVID-19 is going to carry on for a lot longer than the health shock of COVID-19. And we're going to have, that really will focus our minds over the next few years. With respect to our education portfolio, we are going to have to be very clear about what we're delivering and how, and really get the balance right between how we support our local community and then how we work globally. Because I think that one of the things that I really want to see come out of this is that sense of actually viable, tenable global partnerships that we can maintain sustainably. As I said earlier, it doesn't matter now whether you're in Delhi or in Russia or in Bangladesh or in North America, we can build those links. We can have experiences that our students will value in terms of working together as a digital internationalization experience, and we're starting those conversations. And I think curriculum development and sharing of curriculum resource is going to be easier because we've now got a group of faculty who are probably happier to do that and work in a digital world. The other part of our mission is obviously our research and innovation. And I think certainly for Australia, making sure that we deliver on our social compact with society and having our research and innovation address the things that really matter to society, whether that's things that build societal capability through education and health, working on sustainability around water resources, environment, ensuring that our communities are safe and secure, building sustainable quality healthcare systems, and the application of technology is going to be ever more important. And finally, I would say that our role in making sure that we're not just there to deliver change for society, but we're there to help aid progress, is going to be really important. So I think certainly for Australia, as we come out the other side of the COVID pandemic, our contribution to education for a community where very large numbers of people are now unemployed because some old patterns of employment have been ripped asunder in a few months, where there is much more focus on sovereign capability for manufacturing and supply chains, and a much greater degree of community nervousness about travel and globalization. All of those, I think, speak to a challenging but really exciting view for a university. I'm as optimistic for the future as I am pessimistic and nervous about managing the next 6 months. And I think probably as leaders, we're all in this strange hybrid world at the moment. But I think one of the things in closing that is most valuable is the real acceptance that we can work globally, digitally, in a way that we wouldn't have done before. And I think that's almost the most important thing to take out from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Martin. And this was the Vice Chancellor of Deakin University, who has got a very rich experience of working both in UK as well as in Australia, and is treated as a benchmark of excellence in the academic circle. And as Professor Martin was pointing out, that I think the future is going to be the hybrid model. And same was the view of Dr. Carmen, who was also saying that she also feels that tomorrow is going to be the hybrid model which the universities are going to be implemented. But Professor Martin has given 3 very valid points. And I think one of the points on which he has concentrated is creating e-content. So I think content is going to be very, very important for the universities of tomorrow, how they are going to create it and how they are going to assess. So I think that the high quality assessment design and tools are going to be very important factor which will distinguish a great university and the universities who will not be able to survive. The third very, very important point which I think that which he has expressed is the acceptance of the model. We have got a lot of questions, Professor Martin, especially from the students on the blended education and how they are going to enjoy the benefits of research, innovation, and then relating it with the industry. We'll come on those questions later. But we have also with us a known academic leader of Taiwan, Professor Chun Chin Chiao, who has been leading the National Tsinghua University of Taiwan, with whom also Amity enjoys a very, very close relationship. As most of you know that looking at the challenges of tomorrow, the founder and the Chancellor of Amity University, they created a new program which was created at a very accelerated speed. It is known as Global Study Program, where Deakin and many of you are the partners, where the first part of the program can be done in India, and then the students can take advanced entry into the programs of the rest of the world. And I think that hundreds of students, they are coming forward, they are registering themselves, and we feel so happy that a lot of students from India, from Amity, have gone to National Tsinghua University, Taiwan, to do their PhD, to do their projects, to take advanced entry into the programs which they are offering. But we want to understand from you that how the universities in Taiwan, which are known to be technologically very advanced and who are known to adapt the innovation very easily, they are meeting the challenges of COVID-19 and how they are able to attract the international students, and what theorem you are going to propagate. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Professor Singh, and hello, everyone. So this is a really important time and a very challenging time for us. In Taiwan, we are a bit lucky compared to other countries. For the past 6 months, we have gone through a different phase of this COVID-19 pandemic. In the first 3 months, from February to April, we are, as many other countries right now, suffer from this pandemic. We have to not close the school, but we have to put many courses online so that students can stay at home and then continue learning. But we are very lucky that from the April to May and June, we almost have no case free, no pandemic, no COVID-19 case. So it's a case-free country right now. So it's really lucky for us. So we are really in a normal kind of teaching mode in the past 3 months. So in that way, we not the best university to talk about the whole university online learning, but because we still went through this so-called the first 3 months with this pandemic striking to Taiwan. So we have learned some experience about this online learning. So the first two speakers already share their university experience. I don't want to go repeat all this hybrid learning, because I also agree in the future, definitely is a hybrid learning. But let me switch gear to what Professor Singh bring up the issue about the international students, because I'm sure many universities not only to educate their own students, they also educate other students from foreign countries, from international coming country, the students from international different countries. So this is a difficult time for us, because even I say we are lucky in Taiwan, it's relatively safe place in terms of COVID-19, but still there are many other places that is still in the high alert, or still in the trouble with the pandemic of COVID-19. So our country has this so-called border control. We at the beginning, we do not allow any student from a foreign country to come back or to join, to go back to Taiwan to continue their education. So that's why we provide online teaching, online courses for those foreign students can continue to learn. But I think it's still important to bring them back to the university on campus, because as two of the speakers already said, online learning has their merit, has some advantage. But let me speak in other way, the different perspective, because after this school semester end a few months ago, a few weeks ago, I had a chance to organize a panel discussion with all the best lecturer, best teaching professor in our university. We discussed what we learned from the experience of this online teaching. And to our surprise, not all the faculty member or the teachers favor this online learning. For example, the basic, the freshman calculus courses, those are require a very step-by-step teaching. And those courses, the faculty member, the lecturers say they prefer in-class teaching. So that's just one example I want to bring up to the attention to today's audience. That is, even though I think the branding learning and branding program is the future for all of the university, but we still have to be very careful. Some of the courses still need its best teaching in class. So we have to design our curriculum carefully. Of course, it's better to have branding learning, but some of the courses require some in-class interaction and discussion. And we as administrator, I think we have to very clearly to separate a different kind of courses and then design a specific program for each different courses based on their learning, based on students' learning experience. And that's one thing I like to bring about in today's discussion. The second thing is, because of this online teaching, online learning experience, now I think the classroom is actually flat, meaning that the global, we can have all the faculty member become, not the faculty member he or she does not have to be in Taiwan or on campus. It can be in other country, in India, in Australia, in any other country. And because this online teaching make the faculty can be very easy to teach in different places, I think that's an advantage for the future university. For example, in the past, in the classical way, we have to recruit faculty member and ask them to stay on campus at least half a year or 4 months at least for 1 year. But that's, for some faculty member, it's quite difficult to leave their current position to join our faculty member to come into Taiwan to teach. But if we allow this kind of online teaching, I think we can invite a more excellent faculty and excellent expert to give a lecture and then benefit our students. So I think that's the I think that's the opportunity for us after this COVID-19. We learn the online teaching is not so difficult and everybody embrace this online teaching style. Then the faculty can also teaching in a different way, and they don't have to be physically present in the campus. They can still deliver their lecture online and remotely. I think that's a very important, powerful kind of a game shift for our higher education for lecture. And finally, I would like to bring up the issue about the post pandemic of COVID-19. That is because during this period of time, as right now we are discussed online. I don't have to travel to India to join this conference. So that makes the time management more efficient because if I have to go to India to attend this conference, it will at least take me about 3 days to travel and then to do all this travel. The time is very consuming, but now I only need to spend 2 hours to do the conversation with all this panel expert in here. So that's efficiency. However, I think I have to also bring up the other side of this coin. That is, I think the person-to-person interaction is still very important because I think some of the spirit is very difficult to exchange through this online, facing the screen. I think if we can really get together physically, I think they still have some merit. So we should still embrace. That's why I think branding program or branding learning or branding interaction is the future. So I like this kind of online discussion, but I still think we need to continue our in-person discussion in the future. And so combined together, I think we will make a better educational world. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Xiao. And I think Professor Xiao is also for the hybrid model, and he has educated everyone that how they have been able to implement and how they are forcing and how they are going to meet the challenges of the COVID-19 for the next 6 months and for the times to come. We have got a number of questions for you also, Professor Xiao, and I think one of the questions which one of your PhD students, Meera Nandjog, who has been studying at NTHU doing PhD and was earlier with us. She has some questions for you, especially that what will happen to the students who are from the science background? What will happen to the experiments and the labs where they will do experiments? But she is really very thrilled that you have come on the webinar. But we'll take this question later on. We have got Professor Pavel with us from Russia. Thank you so much for joining. And 19 of our students have just come from Russia. They were on the BRIC scholarship. They really enjoyed it. And in the last 1 year, I think that our very senior delegation, including myself, we have been to Russia at least 3 times to see this amazing country, amazing potential, great professionals. And the way I think you are bringing the education reforms in your country, it's inspiration to the whole world. But what as for you, Professor Pavel, what you feel? Because I think Russia is also facing and is looking at number of cases are rising there. Language is one of the issues which I think you need to address. So what you feel is going to be the theorem of innovation, which you are going to implement to see that the word comes to Russia and Russia goes to the whole world?
Okay, thank you very much, dear colleagues, dear friends. Thank you for inviting me to this panel discussion. I represent Novosibirsk State University of Economics and Management, and we have more than 1,000 staff and 11,000 students. We are not too big, but we are the largest university of social economic profile in the eastern part of Russia. We're located in Novosibirsk, it's Siberia. And of course, in March this year, our university, as our universities and whole education systems around the world, did not just face difficulties. In just a few weeks, 95% of students around the planet were forced to switch to distance or blended learning. Universities were truly in an emergency. Barriers to the model that schools and universities have followed for centuries have emerged. Russian universities, like their counterparts in many countries of the world, decided to continue their work, at least on a limited scale, to help students continue their education and even complete their studies. Most of 450 Russian universities were able to switch to a completely remote work format within 1 week. At the same time, of course, the education system has experienced significant difficulties. Surveys have shown that before the pandemic, about 60% of teachers rarely or never gave lectures and classes in a distant format. At the same time, almost 90% of teachers believed, and they continue to think, that it is better to conduct classes in a full-time format. Despite the fact that pandemic continues and in Russia schools and universities are closed, and the Russian Ministry of Science and Higher Education has not yet finally decided on the format on the new academic year, which begins in Russia on September the 1st, certain conclusions can already be drawn. First, of course, it's obvious there is a need to develop and implement a new model of educational process, which can be called a combined, hybrid, blended, or so on. And it's a great issue from different topics, philosophical and technological, content, quality, and so on. And the matter of standards and regulations also. Secondly, the pandemic has shown excessive rigidity and inflexibility of the educational process of most Russian universities, unfortunately, which is irrelevant to a complex and changing world. At the same time, the situation also shows the potential of digital technologies and individualization and optimization of the educational process, the development of new educational programs. Our university needs to respond to the demand for flexible and personalized education by allowing students to count online courses from other universities in their curriculum. Thirdly, the existing infrastructural capabilities, rigid digital resources, and tools and methodological solutions are not enough to make the introduction of digital technologies and distance formats effective and convenient for students and teachers. It is necessary to accelerate the development of these resources and relevant practices of the educational process, stimulate the improvement of the methodological qualifications of teachers, and research the effectiveness of new technologies. Different common services should be created, such as digital libraries, for example. In Russia, it is also necessary to move to the concept of using personal devices of students and teachers, so-called BYOD, bring your own device concept, and cloud services instead of traditional purchase of computers and other equipment. Fourth, the new situation has shown a demand for a significant transformation of higher education management, including the need to ensure the financial stability of universities and the modernization of control activities by the government. Unfortunately, we also need to be prepared to repeat the negative scenario. This means that the term digital readiness of the university should appear, and various stress tests should be carried out. Different scenarios should be developed. In Russia, one of the initiatives after the start of the pandemic was the development of an index of university digitalization and the development of so-called digital profiles of universities, which show the strengths and weakness of digitalization of universities and their ability to quickly organize distance learning. It is important that the experience of recent months has formed not only a number of problems, but also a window of opportunity for the next step in the development of higher education. It showed that there are problems and tasks that cannot be solved without technologies, without a remote format. Most of the teachers and students tried new opportunities and were able to work in this mode. However, its limitations are obvious to everyone, and we see the risk of the system rollback to the pre-digital, pre-pandemic format. One of the opportunities in the pandemic provides is strengthening horizontal connections and communications of universities around the world. And we see it during this panel discussion, as well as strengthening the interaction of universities and IT companies also. Another positive result in the long term could be a reduction in inequality in access to higher education by stimulating the transfer of knowledge to a digital and open format. In the post-COVID time, not only universities will change, but also society itself, and universities will have to respond to these changes. First, most obvious, people and companies will increasingly focus on digital skills and distant work. This determines the need for both changes in existing educational programs and the introduction of new programs for employees of companies in a large number of industries. Second, the pandemic, according to Taleb, turned out to be one of the black swans which made necessary drastic changes in the management of organizations. Many companies have had to implement extraordinary crisis management measures in finance, marketing, and so on. And the demand for such skills will remain high. The third is the development of new programs and technological solutions, as well as information security issues. It was in trend before, and now this trend will only intensify. Dear colleagues, unfortunately, the world is still only in the middle or even in the beginning of the difficult path. And universities around the world and society as a whole are facing tremendous changes and can only be solved together. I thank again Amity University for organizing such an important and timely discussion to jointly seek answers to difficult questions. And I would also like to invite all colleagues to interact and collaborate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Preble, and we will be shortly in touch with you. And great insights you have been able to provide to us. And there are a large number of Indian students and academicians who look forward for further collaborating with Russian universities. But I have got a number of questions. I think about 27% of the questions which are in front of me from students, they are on international experience and on employability. They want to understand from us that, and many of them, and I think that 7 of them, similar questions they are asking. And one of the questions I'm taking from the youngest student who is just 19-year-old, and she's asking a question that I wanted to go to Australia, Mr. Martin, and she is not able to go now because of the obvious reasons. And she is joining now the global study program, which Amity as an academic leader in India has been able to create within no time. And then she's saying that I am joining this program, but I have a lot of questions that if I go later on to Australia, will I be getting a similar kind of degree as well as the experience? Because in my mind, the employability is something which is very, very important, because as per Australia and as per the legislations of the various countries, whether it's UK or USA, Russia, or Taiwan, or in Bangladesh, you will find that the students, especially in Australia, those who go, if they are not working for 2 years, they are not able to get PR. So she is saying, and she will not be able to work there. So she is saying that if I go now later on, and let's say that I'm spent less than 2 years in Australia, do you think that it is going to affect my career profile? And what is your message for hundreds of students who wanted to take international experience, but may find it difficult now to work in the various countries because of the visa and because of the PR rules and because of the change scenario?
Yeah. Okay, thanks. I mean, it's a very common question that many will ask, various flavors of that. I think the first thing to recognize is that I've talked to so many students over the last 4 or 5 months whose sort of aspirations have really been thrown up in the air because of what has happened. And we recognize just how difficult that is. There's a lot we could talk about, but you mentioned about the quality of the degree. And I'll talk about Deakin. If you study with Deakin and it's a hybrid degree with a partner that we work with, that qualification is the same qualification now as it was last year, and it's the same qualification it will be next year. Again, specifically with the Deakin hat on, as I said, we had 18,000 students who were studying largely fully online before this started. We don't distinguish between our degrees. So we don't have deacon degree in brackets online, deacon degree on brackets on campus. It is the same degree. The educational outcomes are the same. What we expect of the students and the standing it gives you is the same. We recognize that for some of our degrees, even fully online, you have to have a hybrid experience. So we've got a nearly fully online engineering degree, for instance, but you still have to come onto campus several times a year for 2 weeks of block teaching each time to do that, because at the moment, there is no way of replacing that experience with and probably there never will be a way of replacing that experience. So I think I can assure you that the educational experience, the quality of the degree, and if you're linked up with a partner like Amity and coming through, that will be the same. This has thrown doubts about timing, but not about the broad standing and philosophy. The issues when it comes to post-study work rights and everything else are more complicated. And I think it's important to point out that for all countries at the moment, when international students can enter, how long they can enter for is very fluid. I mean, we heard from Professor Chow in Taiwan that at the moment it's closed doors. Largely for Australia, it's closed doors at the moment. We saw our government just last week announce some changes to our post-study work rights so that students who enroll in an online degree or online units contributing towards a deacon degree, if they come and do a hybrid component later, that will count towards their post-study work rights. But I think it's important, we just have to keep watching all the time. This is changing very, very rapidly. It's changing country by country. But if you've got an aspiration and a desire to study overseas, whether it's in Taiwan, Russia, wherever, keep that aspiration. A delay of a year seems like a delay of a lifetime at the moment. In 10 years, it won't seem like the delay of a lifetime. That time overseas will be a life-shaping, life-changing experience for so many people. Yes, it might be delayed, but please don't lose that sight, don't lose that aspiration. It's really important. And for me, I've had so much joy from having international travel, international partnerships. It's really there. So yeah, it's hard at the moment to see a way through for so many, but please do keep that aspiration. It is there. And I can assure you that for all of our universities, we're focusing really hard on ensuring that that quality remains, the value of that education remains, albeit in really quite changed circumstances.
Thank you, Professor Martin. I think the message is very clear that international education really pays you in the long run, and you need to have that international experience, which is going to help you in carving a niche in your career. We would request Professor Xiao and Professor Powell and Dr. Carmen if they have also any comments on this question.
Yeah, I would like to follow up Professor Martin's view, because in Taiwan, we also have the same issue. Like Professor Singh, your 19 years old student asked the question, because in Taiwan, we have several high school students, they graduate, usually they will go to Europe or US or Australia or New Zealand to get their higher education. But because of this COVID-19, so they cannot go. So in this semester, in the coming semester, from the September, actually from this summertime, we create a so-called a special college. We call 微工书院, but that's just a translation. It's a special college, and it's non-credit school. But we invite all the high school students, the graduate, just newly graduate high school students. They have to delay 1 year going to American, UK, Europe, or Australia. But they will stay for at least 1 semester in our campus. So they will intermingle with our students. They get some kind of a continual learning experience in our university. And then if the pandemic, the COVID-19 gets better and better at the end of this year, in the next year, 2021, they will go abroad. They will continue their higher education. So just Professor Martin said, it will be 1 year or maybe half year delay, but the spirit of learning can continue in our university, and then they will mix with our domestic student together, and they become a spatial peer, because at a normal time, they won't meet each other. But now, because of COVID-19, those students and our regular student will meet up, will become friends and colleagues. And then later on, they will become lifelong friends. So I think we should, locally, we should host those students, let them to continue to learn. And once the COVID-19 gets done, they can go out, they can go to Australia, to go to any other country to pursue their dream, to pursue their higher education. I think that's the way we are dealing with those students at the moment.
Yeah, please, Dr. Carmen. Thank you, Professor Chow, and over to you, Professor Carmen.
It's the same thing, same case with us, because during summer, my students are going to Indonesia, to elsewhere in the world, and then there are some students getting in the university for the exchange. But this is the same question. It's the same question that the students are asking. Madam, what will happen with our exchange program? Because there are programs which are fully funded. It's just an assurance that once the pandemic, once this coronavirus, once the vaccine is there, we will be sending you outside on in your destination. But then for the meantime, we are doing this sort of, what do you say? It's an online exchange, but it's really nothing can replace the face-to-face. But what I tell the students is we are not canceling. We are just postponing. In due time, you will go out. You will see foreign students coming in. You will have all these friendships, as what Professor Shawa said. We will come to a new normal where you will meet your friends from outside, where you will be going out. You will be doing classes with the foreign students. So it's just a matter of time. There is no cancellation. It's just a postponement.
So it's just a postponement, right? That is what Professor Carmen is saying. Professor Power, you want to comment on this question?
Yes, most of our international students went home in March. For those who stay here, even the government organized special flights or special trains because they should go home, because nobody knew when this pandemic will stop. And now we are waiting for a decision from our government. I think they will tell us in late August. And the international students will, I hope they will come here in September.
Thank you, Professor Pavel. And he's very right that governments, they are working across the globe to work on this issue. And I personally know that 19 students who are in Russia, we arranged a special flight for them. It was Vande Mataram flight, which Indian government was very kind enough to arrange, and the students, they came back. And thank you so much that Russia provided a scholarship to these students to be there. And they are coming with very good memories for the semester they have spent in Russia. But I think also you will find that progressive universities who are present in this webinar, and those who are really working to find the solution, that what is going to be the solution in the times to come, they have been able to also give their views to the government. For example, you will find that Honorable Prime Minister of India, he has come with a number of changes. Our Education Minister has come with the new education policy. Similarly, last evening we were talking to two Vice Chancellors of United States of America, and both of them, they were saying that they are bringing lot of changes in their education system. Similarly, we saw Professor Martin talking about the changes which the world will say. In Taiwan, I think the thought is going on that how to meet the challenges of tomorrow. Similarly, American University in Bangladesh is also thinking that what they need to do. So do you think that, that in the times to come, the order of education is going to change? More we speak to the academic leaders, thought leaders across the globe, everyone is saying that maybe virtual universities is going to replace many of the physical universities, right? So though the students are loving it, so I think that we did a poll, about 57% of the students said that they really love e-learning education. And as Professor Martin and Professor Kyo was saying, that they don't distinguish between the degrees they give. Most of the top rated universities, they are not distinguishing between the regular students or the distance learning or e-learning students. But very interestingly, 87% of the students whom we interviewed and whom we sent a questionnaire, they said that though they love e-learning models, but they miss the kind of interaction they used to have amongst their peers. And 92% of the students whom we have spoken, they say that they have got a fear in their mind that how they will be able to interact with the industry. Because at the end of the day, their internships, their projects, their jobs, their employability, all needs to be determined by the kind of exposure they will be doing with the industry. So my question to the academic leaders in this webinar is that how you are ensuring that, let's say that for the next 1 year, if we need to provide the best of the academic as well as practical inputs to our students, then how we will ensure that they get great industry experience and they are employable. Over to you. Maybe that Professor Kyo, we can start with you and then we can come to the other Vice Chancellors.
Yeah, I think that's a very difficult question because as you say, sometimes the student, they can, if it's just typical lecture, I think we can go online, no problem. But some of the really require on-site discussion and then face-to-face discussion, as we discussed in this panel, I think is important. And as you bring up the issue that for the graduate student, for PhD work, for the laboratory work, for the science engineering kind of laboratory work, is inevitable. You have to come to the laboratory and then doing the experiment and collecting data. And that's no way you can replace by so-called blending or online learning. So for those practical or lab-based learning, I think we still need physically present in the lab or in the classroom to learn that. But I think it's important to pay attention for student-student interaction. So when you also bring up the other issue that's whether the future will be all the virtual university, no physical university. I think the answer is no. I think for the physical university, we still has the meaning to keep this physical university, because I think even the lecture can be online, but the discussion and the facilitate how the student interact with each other still require the lectures deliver in the classroom. And particularly when we deliver the lecture, we can recall, we can do the online learning, but how the student watch, how the student observe the other student action in the classroom is also part of learning. So that's why when you do the online learning, everybody show on the icon on the screen. Then you don't have this so-called opportunity to observe other students' interaction with the other student and with the lecturer. So that's something I think we need to redesign our curricula for those kind of course to make sure the student can also interact laterally to interact with each other. So that's one thing I also like to bring up. The other thing I also want to bring up to maybe a discussion is the assessment, because in the typical classroom, we have, we give a student papers, so they write the answer. So this is so-called the in-class evaluation or quiz or exams. But in the online learning mode, I think that this is become a problem. So, but I don't say that it's the only way to assess a student's performance by only in the exam. There may be a multiple way you can assess student, but I think we need to really think hard. How do we change our assessment system so that we can get the multi-aspect way to assess students' learning, and that will give a confidence that the online learning really is better than, could be better than the traditional learning.
Professor Martin, your views, please.
Thanks. It is a really tricky area, and I think the honest answer are there are elements that you simply cannot replace. And we have to remember that that social interaction at university is a really important part of the university experience. We can do some of that online, and at least in the short term, we've been working on a number of, we've got law students who are doing digital internships with law companies. I was speaking to two law partners yesterday who'd had a digital intern, and they said it wasn't the same, but in the circumstances, it was better than nothing. We're running our innovation competition online this year with startup companies. Again, the interaction is there, it's not the same. So I think the honest answer is that there are bits that we simply can't do, but I think all of us are recognizing the importance of that. We are looking to fill the gaps where we can, but also I think it is concentrating our minds again on what I talked about before, is in a new hybrid model, what are the things that really have to happen? What are the things that we're actually going to focus on making sure that we do on campus? Because those are the things we've missed. And I think that's going to be the important question. I'm absolutely convinced that we won't see a wholesale replacement of bricks and mortar universities with global digital universities. There is so much that we do that cannot be replaced. But what I'm equally convinced about is that the acceptance of digital education as a complement to campus education has happened. And that's not just me saying that, it's a recognition. The Chinese government have recognized online education in the last 6 to 12 months more than we ever thought would have been possible. The new Indian education strategy that was published or went to cabinet this week, in the higher education piece, there is a very strong statement about the importance of online and digital education. So I think what we have seen is a change in acceptance, a change in focus, but we're still going to have bricks and mortar universities. The two most digital companies in the world, Apple and Google, invest enormous amounts of money in their physical campuses and getting their staff to interact physically. If their world's still doing it, I think that's a pretty good statement that you can't replace everything with digital. But that blended world gives huge options and flexibilities. 2 years in India, 2 years overseas, a year in India, a year overseas, a year back in India. 6 months doing an internship because you've built the linkages. It's really good, but we're not going to see it replace that physical, because that physical is what makes us human.
Thank you, Professor Martin, and I think very useful point he has given. No one can replace human interaction. It is very, very important that along with the technology, we should be able to interact amongst our peers, along our colleagues, along with the groups. And I think that is a reason that most of the progressive universities of the world, they are coming forward and they are collaborating. For example, at Amity, we have collaborated with some of the top universities, and I think with almost all of you, where we are offering a service to the universities that if you have recruited the students from India and they want to experience labs, they want to experience infrastructure, they want to work with community, they want to go work on the incubator, they want to be part of the various committees, they want to have social interaction, that might not that they should be able to do first year with us. So it's the same program on the hybrid model which any Australian, Taiwanese, Bangladesh, Russian, American, New Zealand, anywhere in the world, the university is giving. They will be doing the same program, but at Amity University. But as far as their labs are concerned, their lab requirements are concerned, their interaction with the industry is concerned, their internship projects are concerned, we will be able to organize it. So I think the world is changing quite a lot. And that is what I think that some of the top rated universities in the world, they are thinking. We have taken a step forward. So don't worry, students, you will get many more models in the times to come. But I would request Dr. Carmen and Dr. Powell also to give their comments on the same topic, how you are meeting if the students, they have lab requirements, so, and they still want to go abroad, how you are meeting this challenge?
Oh, well, in addition to the three speakers, I don't want to repeat, I'm just giving a one-liner. There is really nothing that can replace physical interaction. Nothing. Nothing can ever replace that one. It's just the digital education and the traditional face-to-face complement each other. You know, there is an advantage of digital education, there is a disadvantage. There is an advantage of face-to-face, there is also the disadvantage. So these two complement each other. You know, nothing can replace interaction. So I am very optimistic that universities in Bangladesh will open pretty soon, and the students will be able to do their laboratories, will be able to meet with their friends. And of course, we should still be careful of when we open the universities. But I'm sure, I am very optimistic, we will go back to the campus. We will be able to give what we are doing right now. It's because of the times. What we can do during these times, we are giving our maximum effort to let the students be employed even during this time. So it's a challenge for all universities. It's a challenge for all of us. It's really also the very difficult question, how do we ensure employability? What we are doing in the universities is it is the call of the pandemic times. It is the most that we can do to give a better skills, digital skills to the students. So even we have several students who will be who has graduated. So we are giving them additional skills to get them employed. And if companies are willing to get their internships, we are also sending the students. So not all companies are opening up. There are a few companies who are opening up. So we send the students to them also for internship.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Carmen. Dr. Pavel, over to you.
Yes, I agree in common with the previous speakers, but there's some consideration. I think that, of course, physical interaction is very important, but there is different shares of online and offline according to different programs, and it depends on the type of knowledge and type of skills which we as universities provide to our students. Because of course we have in Russia joke, I think, we ask, do you want to be treated by a doctor who entered online university? I think no, nobody wants to be treated by this online doctor with online diploma. But for example, there are a lot of professionals, for example, in India, programmers, which are freelance programmer, and they have never been to the company they work for. So I think that the share of online courses in their curricula can be larger share. For example, if we comparing to a medical or some other education. And I think that there will be some programs that can be mostly online. Of course, with a physical interaction, but a lot of courses can be online. I think it's my point of view.
Thank you, Dr. Pavel. And I think that we have got a number of questions, but we will send you the summary of the panel discussion as we need to close down now. But to all those who are attending this webinar, a number of questions which we have received and the queries, varied parents, deans, academicians, very senior leaders who are attending it. So I think that the message of the leading academicians from across the globe is very, very clear. Don't worry. Don't just worry. This is for sure that systems are going to change. Rankings are going to change. university systems, academic systems, evaluation procedures, how we are going to address those issues, all of them, they are going to change. And next 5 years, you will find that many new universities will come up. That those who they were less known, they will find a place in the top 50. And those innovative models which are coming up, I think no one even ever thought of implementing those models. New education policies are coming in. Word is looking at the governments deliberating that how the universities look like. Collaborations are happening across the globe. Industry is coming forward. But at the end of the day, I think human interaction is more important. And as Professor Martin, Professor Chuan, Dr. Carmen, and Dr. Paul were saying, that at the end of the day, we work for the community, we work for the society. And we need to see that our research, our education, how we are able to offer this to the society. And that is what I think the most progressive universities in the world, they are trying at. And same is the philosophy of Amity. Whatever we are trying to do, we are trying to bring top universities together. We are trying to bring them to India. We are trying to take some of the brightest of our universities to the world, trying to offer that kind of platform to the students, that they are able to get the best education. But don't worry upon the employability. At the end of the day, whenever there is a challenge in front of the human beings, they have been able to adapt, they have been able to innovate, and they have been able to give the new model. Whether it was industrial revolution, whether it was IT revolution, or it's the education and knowledge revolution, I'm sure the universities of tomorrow are going to give you the solution. People will still eat, people will still drink, people will still travel, we will still go to the banks, right? We will still have our human needs. So industry will surely employ people, right? It's just a temporary phase. It will go, but of course, it will give a lesson to all of us, and education system is going to change. Maybe hybrid, right? Maybe something else. The time will tell. But thank you so very much for joining us. Thank you, Professor Martin. Thank you, Professor Sheo. Thank you, Professor Carmen. Thank you, Professor Pavel. We feel so privileged that you came and you gave the right message. We will keep on collaborating. We look forward for your continuous support, continuous guidance, and Amity on behalf of our founder, on behalf of our chancellors, on behalf of our very strong 175,000 family members. We once again thank you so much. Keep on coming to Amity. Thank you. And a big thanks to International Affairs Department, who was working day and night to organize it, and Great Show Gaurav and IAD, which you have put together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.